The man who would nearly destroy my career and my sanity didn't come into my life in a bar or on an app. I met Richard Hale under fluorescent lights in a Franklin, Tennessee conference room that smelled like burnt coffee and dry erase markers. My name is Claire Whitaker. When this started, I was 35, a mid-level operations manager at Salem and Wyatt Logistics. I lived alone in a modest townhouse near Cool Springs, went to brunch on Sundays, texted my friends memes about burnout, and called my mother once a week so she wouldn't worry. My life was not glamorous, but it made sense to me. Richard was the kind of man people turned into a story. Senior director, the guy who saved 2 regional branches from closure, the one who always seemed calm, pressed, and in control. Mid-40s, salt and pepper hair, discreet watch, nice suits without visible brands. People described him with phrases like solid and sharp and class act. The first time he spoke to me directly, I'd just presented a distribution analysis to leadership. My heart was still racing, palms damp, adrenaline buzzing through my veins. As people gathered their laptops and filed out, Richard stayed seated, watching me with that steady, assessing gaze. "Whitaker," he said at last, standing and walking toward me, "you don't just present numbers, you explain them. That's rare." I tried to sound casual. I just like knowing why things are happening, not only that they are. He nodded. "Exactly. Most people just report the fire. You look for the spark. You ever think about where you want to be in 5 years?" I blinked. I mean, yes, but it usually feels like a hypothetical exercise. Why? "Because," he said, "you're wasted in a mid-level role forever. You think like leadership." That one sentence slid under my skin and settled there. I'd heard similar things from peers, but hearing it from him felt different, like something unofficial had just become possible. Over the next few weeks, I saw more of him. A quick stop by my desk after meetings to ask a follow-up question, a short email praising the clarity of a summary, an invitation to sit in on a meeting that was slightly outside my usual remit. Then the texts started. At first, they were strictly professional. "Nice job on that vendor deck. Your comment in the meeting saved us 10 minutes of back and forth. Appreciate it." Then, slowly, the tone bent. "You have a gift for cutting through noise. It's attractive." Or, "You're one of the few people here I don't have to translate things for. Refreshing." The first time he texted me after 10 p.m., I was in sweatpants on my couch, laptop open, half working, half scrolling. "I hope you're not still on spreadsheets," he wrote. "A mind like yours deserves better on a Friday night." I stared at the screen for a long time before replying with something light. Underneath the banter, though, I felt a warm pulse of recognition. Important people don't waste time on you unless they see something there. That's what I told myself. The personal disclosures began in the safety of group settings. We were at a post-workshop dinner in Nashville, a long table of colleagues slowly dwindling as people left to catch flights or beat traffic. Eventually, only a few of us remained, and then somehow it was just me and Richard at the end of the table, 2 half-finished drinks between us. "Do you ever feel like your job is your whole life?" he asked, gaze on the rim of his glass. "All the time," I said. "I joke that my work calendar knows me better than my friends do." He smiled faintly. "I used to think that was noble, sacrificing everything for the career. Then my divorce made me realize how empty that looks from the outside." I blinked. "You're divorced?" He nodded, expression going distant. "A few years now. 2 kids, both grown. The marriage ran out of oxygen. We split the house, the assets, the holidays. Very civilized on paper, less so in reality." "I'm sorry," I said. "Don't be," he replied. "It forced me to figure out who I am when I'm not someone's provider, or villain, depending on the day." He gave a small laugh. It's lonely, though. Not many people my age want to start over. He said it with such weary vulnerability that I didn't question it. A man in his mid-40s with adult kids and a divorce behind him sounds very plausible, very safe. After that, the shift felt slow and inevitable. More late-night texts, jokes that carried just a little charge, compliments that crossed from professional to personal. "You always look so put together," he wrote once. "It's distracting in the best way." I told myself he was just flirting, that I knew how to handle that I was too old, too seasoned to get swept up in anything messy. The first time he invited me to his place, it was under the guise of convenience. "Long day tomorrow," he texted one Friday. "I've got a condo near Cool Springs. Come by after if you want. We can open a bottle of wine and decompress." He sent an address in a development I recognized, newer construction, not cheap. The condo door opened onto neutral furniture and tasteful, generic art. It was clean, modern, and strangely blank. No family photos, no framed certificates, no stray shoes by the door. The kitchen counters were almost bare. "You really are a minimalist," I said, half joking. "I don't even see a junk drawer." He smiled and handed me a glass of red wine. "I travel a lot. I like keeping my space streamlined, less to worry about." "What about your kids?" I asked. "No embarrassing kindergarten art on the fridge?" "They're grown," he said easily. "They don't want to see their childhood stick figures every time they visit. Besides, I don't bring people here often." That last line felt like a hook, pulling at something tender in me. We kissed for the first time that night. It wasn't rushed or sloppy. It was careful and deliberate, like everything else he did. By the time I realized we were past the point of no return, his hands were already on my waist, and I was helping him tug my blouse over my head. Afterward, we lay in the dim light, my head on his chest, his fingers tracing lazy lines along my arm. "You have no idea," he murmured, "how rare it is to meet someone like you at this point in my life. I thought that part of me was over. Then you walk into a conference room, and suddenly I remember what it's like to feel awake." I knew better than to trust lines like that. And yet, lying there, warm and sleepy and wanted, I believed him. The red flags came dressed as care. He always had his phone, always. On the table at lunch, on the nightstand at the condo, tucked into his pocket at the office. But it was always face down. He'd silence notifications with a quick thumb tap whenever I was near. "Anyone interesting?" I asked once when his phone buzzed 3 times in a row. "Just work," he said, kissing me lightly. "You're the only interesting part of my day right now." He never left the phone unattended. If he went to the bathroom, it went with him. If he stepped outside to take a call at the condo, he closed the door behind him. It was constant, subtle vigilance. He did see me on weekends sometimes, but always privately. No brunch dates in downtown Franklin, no strolling through the mall. If we went out, it was to quiet places on the far edges of town, where the probability of someone recognizing him and connecting dots was low. "It's not that I'm ashamed of you," he said once, reading the tension on my face when I suggested trying a popular restaurant. "It's that office gossip is vicious, and you deserve better than being someone's punchline." He framed secrecy as protection, for me. I wanted to believe that. I clung to it. The work entanglement began almost innocently. A favor here, a shortcut there. "Can you forward me the raw procurement file?" he texted one afternoon. "My access is being weird." "Could you soften the language in that quarterly summary?" he asked later. "We don't want the board panicking over every fluctuation." "Run the reconciliation and send me your sign-off," he said in a meeting. "You're closer to the details than anyone." The first time he asked me to sign off on something that didn't fully match, my stomach knotted. "Richard, there's a gap here," I said in his office, spreadsheet pulled up on my laptop. "We're missing about 200,000 between the vendor invoices and the internal ledger. I can't just call this balanced and move on." He steepled his fingers, studying me. "The difference is timing, Claire," he said. "Funds moved before the paperwork caught up. It happens. We'll clean it next quarter." "But if someone audits this period, then they'll see we resolved it," he interrupted. "Not everything has to be perfect in real time. That's not how business works." I hesitated. He leaned back, eyes sharpening. "Do you trust me?" "Yes," I said automatically. At that point, I did. "Then trust that I'm not going to put you in a position that will harm you," he replied. His voice softened. "You told me you wanted more responsibility. This is what it looks like, making calls that are uncomfortable because you understand the bigger picture." Claire. His tone dipped, taking on that mix of disappointment and affection I had grown used to. "I didn't peg you as someone who'd flinch the first time the job wasn't neat. You're braver than that." He turned my discomfort into a test. Saying no would have felt like failing. I signed. After that, the line was easier to cross. Adjust this narrative. Reclassify that expense. Route auditors' questions through him first instead of responding directly. Each step came with a plausible explanation. "We're not lying," he'd say. "We're telling the story in a way the board can consume." "You're not changing the reality," he insisted when I balked at another creative adjustment. "You're managing perception so we can keep people employed and projects funded." Every time I hesitated, he pushed just enough. "You're not a rule robot," he'd say. "You're a leader." Part of me thrilled at being in his inner circle, having access, being trusted with complexities others didn't see. It made me feel special, integral. Then, one night, long after most people had gone home, I opened an older set of reports as part of a vendor consolidation project. I was tracing cost trends, trying to untangle overlapping contracts. What I found instead were patterns. Over several years, there were repeated one-time adjustments that looked suspiciously regular. Costs that disappeared under a vague internal project code and reappeared later in disguised forms. Funds moved between departments without clear approvals, then smoothed over in quarterly summaries. I pulled more reports, cross-checked more dates. A story began to emerge that had nothing to do with my current assignment and everything to do with Richard's special initiatives. The picture wasn't just one of messy accounting. It looked like sustained misreporting, meant to keep his division looking leaner and more profitable than it really was. Shifting losses, hiding overruns, deferring bad news in ways that might technically be explained, but felt like lines had been crossed again and again. His name appeared frequently. Mine did too, more recently. On the drive home, I kept seeing my signature on pages that now felt radioactive. I confronted him the next weekend at the condo. He poured wine, kissed me hello, started to unbutton my blouse. I stepped back. "I've been looking at historic reconciliations," I said. "That internal project code you love so much, it's a graveyard for unexplained transfers." He paused, eyes flickering, then narrowed. "You've been digging where you don't need to," he said. "I've been doing my job," I replied, "and my job tells me that if anyone pulls on that thread, there's a lot underneath. Misreported expenses, deferred losses, patterns that look intentional." "Of course they look intentional," he said, annoyed. "You think something this sophisticated happens by accident?" "That's not reassuring," I snapped. "You've made a habit of bending numbers to fit narratives, and I've helped you, believing you when you said it was harmless. But if an outside auditor really looks..." He stepped closer, voice low. Claire, listen to me. Every senior leader does this in some form. They call it smoothing, bridging, managing the story. You think boards actually want raw chaos? No, they want a narrative arc. I give them one. Except your arc has signatures, I said, mine included. And when people want someone to blame, they look down first, not up. His jaw tightened. Stop acting like this all happened to you without your consent, he said coldly. You're not some wide-eyed intern. You knew we were taking calculated risks. You liked being in the room where decisions were made. Don't pretend you thought this was Sunday school. Guilt flared hot, colliding with anger. I trusted you, I said. I trusted your judgment. I believed you when you told me you'd never put me in danger. And I still won't, he replied, softening again. He reached for my hands. Hey, I'm sorry. I pushed. I know this is heavy, but I would never let you take the fall. You matter too much to me. You're not a pawn. You're my partner, professionally, personally. He brushed a kiss across my knuckles. You're the only place I feel like myself, he murmured. This, us, is the one honest thing I have. The irony of him calling our affair honest nearly choked me. I pulled my hands back. Are you really divorced, Richard? I asked. He didn't flinch. Of course. Why? Because you never talk about your ex except in vague terms, I said. Because you never take me anywhere someone might recognize you. Because you're surgically attached to your phone. Because that condo looks like no one actually lives there. He stared at me for a long moment, then smiled faintly. You're overthinking, he said. You always do when you're scared. Yes, I'm really divorced. Yes, my kids are grown. No, I'm not hiding some secret family in a basement somewhere. He delivered the lies smoothly, and I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe I was just paranoid, that my discomfort was about numbers, not him. I didn't know then that the truth would knock on my front door 2 weeks later. It was a Thursday night. I was in leggings and an old college t-shirt, reheating leftover pasta when the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. The woman on my doorstep looked like she'd walked out of a glossy lifestyle magazine. Late 40s, dark hair in a sleek bob, tailored coat, neutral lipstick, a leather handbag that probably cost more than my rent. Good evening, she said. Are you Claire Whitaker? Yes, I said slowly. She extended a hand. I'm Margaret Hale, she said, Richard's wife. For a second, the hallway swayed. His wife? I repeated. She nodded. Legally. Emotionally is another story. I thought you were divorced, I blurted. He says a lot of things, she replied. May I come in? I promise I'm not here to yell. I'd like to talk to you as someone who's been where you are. My instincts screamed at me to shut the door, but there was something in her eyes, tired, sharp, strangely kind, that made me step back. Okay, I said, come in. We sat at my small dining table. My pasta sat forgotten in the microwave. I hired a private investigator, she said simply. Richard's patterns changed. He started dressing a little nicer for late meetings, smelled different, disconnected at home, but oddly energized. I have seen this before. Twice. Twice? I echoed. She nodded. I've met 2 women before you. One knew, one didn't. You're smarter than both of them. That's debatable, I muttered. She studied me. Did he tell you I was cold, controlling, that the marriage died years ago and I clung for money or image? Heat crawled up my neck, something like that. He's consistent, I'll give him that, she said dryly. Here's the truth. Our marriage has been complicated for a long time. He needs constant admiration. I used to supply that. Then I grew up. He never forgave me for it." Her gaze hardened slightly. "When we married, his family insisted on a prenuptial agreement," she continued. "At the time, I thought it was humiliating. He framed it as protection. 'You'll be taken care of no matter what,' he said. The document is more creative than that." "How so?" I asked. "If we divorce for any reason other than adultery, I get a decent settlement," she said. "Comfortable, respectable. If I leave without evidence of cheating, I get less. If he initiates and claims irreconcilable differences, I get less. But if I can prove he has been unfaithful by his own admission or irrefutable evidence, then I get the house, most of our shared assets, and a significant chunk of his future earnings and retirement." I stared, and he agreed to that? "He was very confident in his ability to outmaneuver me," she said. "The prenup is ironclad. The burden of proof is high. Suspicious receipts won't do it. Vague texts won't do it. I need clear, undeniable proof. Face, voice, context." She held my gaze. "The investigator followed him to the condo near Cool Springs," she said. "Recorded him entering with you more than once. I know your schedule by now better than I know my own. I know he tells you he's divorced. I know he paints himself as lonely and misunderstood. I know he uses his position at work to make you feel special." Shame and anger surged inside me. "I didn't know about you," I said quietly. "If I had, I wouldn't have." "I believe you," she cut in. "You don't have to convince me. He's very good at controlling the narrative. I lived on his script for 20 years. "Then why are you here?" I asked. "If you have all this, why not go straight to a lawyer?" "Because what I have is strong suspicion," she said. "What I need is proof. Proof that he is sleeping with someone else. Proof that he knows I exist and that he understands the stakes. The prenup says adultery, not vibes." She reached into her bag and pulled out a small black device, setting it on the table. "This is a camera," she said. "High resolution, good audio, concealable. You know his patterns at that condo, when he arrives, how he moves, when he talks. I need you to help me get him on record, talking about me, about what would happen if I found out, about what he risks, and ideally in a very compromising context." "You want a sex tape," I said flatly. "I want leverage," she replied. "Call it what you like." I stared at the camera. "What makes you think I'll help you?" I asked. "Because he's put you in danger too," she said, voice steady. "He's entangled you in whatever he's been doing with those numbers. If this blows up, he will act like you were a rogue employee, a lovesick subordinate who overstepped. He will protect himself first, always." Images flashed through my mind. His lectures about leadership, his casual talk of scapegoats, his comment about signatures going down before him. She was right. Of course she was. "If we do this," I said slowly, "there's no going back." "There's no going back already," she replied. "The question is whether you go forward blind or with your eyes open." We made a plan. The first attempt didn't work. I hid the camera behind a stack of towels in the condo bathroom, angled toward the bedroom doorway. He came over, we had sex, we talked about work and wine and travel. I tried to steer things toward his past. He gave non-committal answers. "If she found out, she'd make my life miserable," he said at one point, but he never said her name, never mentioned the prenup, never acknowledged that they were still married. It was all mushy enough to be defended later. The second attempt, he got suspicious. "You're very interested in my ex lately," he said, eyes narrowing as we lay in bed. "Why?" "Because you never talk about her," I replied lightly. "I don't want ghosts in the room with us." He rolled away. The past is boring. I'm not dragging it in here. I left that night feeling like I'd failed a pop quiz I hadn't studied for. Margaret was patient. He'll crack when he's smug, she said over the phone, after a win, or when he's venting. He can't resist narrating his own cleverness. She was right. The third time, it happened almost effortlessly. Salem and Wyatt had just closed a big deal. There were congratulatory emails, catered lunches, a general sense of triumph. Richard texted me that evening. "Come over," he wrote. "I want to celebrate in my favorite way." He was looser when I arrived, open, buzzing with victory. We drank champagne instead of wine. He made a crude joke about performance metrics and performance in bed. I rolled my eyes and kissed him anyway. Afterward, we sprawled across the bed, both slightly breathless. "You know," he said, staring at the ceiling, "they all think this deal went through because of their careful planning. The truth is, they would have killed it 3 times over if I hadn't been massaging those numbers for months." I turned on my side to look at him. "You really think you're untouchable, don't you?" He smirked. "I think I'm better at this game than most. That helps." "Doesn't it ever scare you?" I pressed. "How much you're juggling? The board, the metrics, the other parts of your life." He laughed softly. "You mean my legally wedded ball and chain?" My heart kicked hard. "I thought you said you were divorced," I said carefully. "On paper, eventually," he said, waving a hand. "In reality, we've been done for years. We live in the same house and orbit separate suns. The marriage is a financial contract at this point, not some grand romance." "But if she found out about me," I asked, "what then?" He snorted. "If Margaret ever found out about you," he said, "she'd take me to the cleaners. She'd bleed me dry and bury me in court. That prenup she made such a fuss about, it's a guillotine. One confirmed affair and I lose the house, most of our assets, a big chunk of my retirement. She'd love that. She pretends she's above it, but trust me, she'd pull that lever in a heartbeat." He shook his head, smiling. "But she won't," he continued. "She prefers the fantasy where I'm above all that. It makes her feel superior, so she doesn't look too closely. And as long as she doesn't, I get to have this, you, my secret life." He reached for me, but I couldn't move. All I could hear was his voice in my head, repeating, "Take me to the cleaners," and "guillotine," and "secret life." The camera saw everything, heard everything. His face, his voice, his admission that he was still married, that he knew the stakes, that he chose to risk it anyway. When I left, I drove to a grocery store parking lot and sat in my car until my hands stopped shaking. Then I called Margaret. "He gave you what you need," I said. "It's all there." She was quiet for a moment. Then, "Bring it tomorrow." "And Claire?" "You did well," she said. "Better late than never." The confrontation took place in a small conference room at a law office in downtown Franklin. Neutral territory. Not my company, not his, not their home. Just 4 walls, a long table, and a sense that something irreversible was about to happen. Margaret and I sat side by side. She wore a dark blazer and a white blouse, her hair smooth, her makeup understated. I wore the calmest thing in my closet. My hands still felt unsteady. Richard arrived 5 minutes late, irritation written all over his face. "Why are we here?" he demanded, dropping into a chair. "And why are you two in the same room like this? This is ridiculous." He looked at me, then at her. If this is some kind of jealous wife meets mistress melodrama, I'm not playing. Margaret slid a tablet onto the table and pressed play. His own voice filled the room, clear and unmistakable. If Margaret ever found out about you, she'd take me to the cleaners. She'd bleed me dry and bury me in court. That prenup she made such a fuss about, it's a guillotine. One confirmed affair, and I lose the house, most of our assets, a big chunk of my retirement. She'd love that. She pretends she's above it, but trust me, she'd pull that lever in a heartbeat. We let the recording run long enough to capture his talk of the marriage being a financial contract and me being his secret life. When it ended, the room felt heavy. He looked at the tablet, then at me, then at Margaret. "You recorded me," he said quietly. "Yes," I replied, "I did." His jaw flexed. "You set me up," he said to Margaret. "I gave you opportunities to tell me the truth," she replied. "You declined." He laughed once, humorless. "You can't use this. It's illegal. It's entrapment." "It's evidence," she said, "and it's more than enough under the terms you insisted on when we married." She slid a folder toward him. "These are my terms now." He didn't touch it. "You will resign from Salem and Wyatt," she said, "effective immediately. You will recommend Claire as your successor in writing and verbally. You will sign this 5-year non-compete, and you will sign these divorce papers, acknowledging infidelity as the grounds." His eyes flashed. "And if I don't?" he asked. "Then this recording goes to my attorney," she said calmly, "along with your financial patterns, the transfers, the misreported project code. I'm sure Salem and Wyatt would be very interested to know how creative their senior director has been. You're not the only one who can calculate risk." He turned to me. "You're going to let her do this?" he demanded. "You know what happens if I'm out. You know how ugly this could get." "I know what already happened," I said. "You lied to me about your life. You used me at work, then told me not to play victim when I realized how deep I was in. You made me feel special so I wouldn't ask too many questions. I'm not protecting you from the consequences of your own choices." "You're implicated too," he snapped. "Those signatures won't magically disappear." "I've already spoken to someone," I said. "If an investigation ever comes, I'll tell the truth, all of it, including how you coached me, what you told me about real leadership, and what you stood to gain. We'll see who they believe." For the first time since I'd known him, he looked genuinely afraid. "You'd burn your own career down," he said slowly, "just to hurt me?" "I'm trying to stop you from burning mine," I replied. He stared at the folder for a long time. When he finally opened it, his shoulders sagged. He signed the resignation letter, the non-compete, the divorce papers. Each scrape of pen on paper sounded like a door closing behind him. When he finished, he shoved the documents back toward Margaret. "You're both going to regret this," he said. "I built the life you're standing in. Don't forget that." Margaret stood. "I won't," she said. "I'll remember who I was when I helped you build it too. And now I'll remember who I am without you." He looked at me, eyes burning. "You think this promotion is a win?" he said. "Wait until you realize how lonely the top is." He walked out. The official email announcing his departure landed the next week. Personal reasons, gratitude for years of leadership, exciting new chapter. No one outside a tiny circle knew the truth. There was speculation about his replacement, of course. Names whispered in break rooms, external candidates discussed. My name came up more than I expected. When they offered me the role of regional senior director, I said yes. Not because I wanted to sit in his old chair, but because I refused to let the story end with him as the only person who'd ever occupied it. Adjusting to the role was strange. Some days I felt like I was living someone else's life. Other days, I felt more myself than I ever had, making decisions with my own values instead of parroting his. I quietly unwound as much of his tilting as I could, within reason and within legal advice. I was honest with internal audit when they came knocking with questions. I did not volunteer everything, but I did not lie. Margaret got what she was owed: the house, the assets, the security he had dangled over her for years as both gift and threat. She moved through the divorce with the same calm precision she'd brought to that conference room. We met for coffee every few months. We never quite became friends, but there was a bond there, a shared knowledge of what it feels like to step off someone else's script. "Do you miss him?" I asked her once. "Sometimes I miss who I thought he was," she said, "but I don't miss living on the edge of his moods." "Same," I said, quietly. Life didn't magically rearrange itself into a redemption montage. I still woke some nights replaying conversations, second-guessing choices, hearing his voice in my head telling me I was braver than that whenever I hesitated. I started therapy. I learned the words emotional grooming, power imbalance, coercive control. It was unsettling to see my story mirrored in other people's, but also oddly comforting. I wasn't uniquely foolish. I was human. About a year after Richard left the company, I met Nathan. It was at a charity 5K in Nashville my company sponsored. He was volunteering at the registration table, arguing cheerfully with a vendor about the best way to arrange water stations. Mid-30s, brown hair, a little awkward, warm, crinkly eyes. We ended up working the same booth for an hour, joking about corporate buzzwords and the mystery of people who show up late to timed races. He worked in IT for a healthcare organization. He had no idea what a senior director at a logistics firm actually did, and he wasn't especially impressed by titles. "What do you like about your job?" he asked on our first coffee date, rather than, "How high up are you?" He listened when I answered, really listened, not waiting for his turn to talk, not scanning the room for someone more useful. He was patient with my caution. When I flinched at certain kinds of praise, he didn't push. When I needed time alone, he took it in stride. One night, months into seeing each other, we sat on my couch, some forgettable show paused on the screen, our empty takeout containers on the coffee table. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "Sure." "Do you ever worry that I'm going to turn into someone else?" he asked. "Like another version of a man you've known before?" I exhaled slowly. "Yes," I said, "I do. Not because of anything you've done, just because my brain learned some hard lessons and hasn't forgotten yet." He nodded. "I can't promise I'll never mess up," he said. "I'm human, but I can promise I won't use your trust as a bargaining chip. And if I ever hurt you, it won't be because I carefully engineered your reality. It'll be because I did something dumb and need to fix it." It was not a grand speech. It was simple, honest. That was what made it land. For the first time, I realized that trust didn't mean assuming someone could never hurt you. It meant believing they wouldn't choose to keep doing it once they knew they had. My name is Claire Whitaker, and this was The Last Straw. If you enjoyed this story, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe.